Hello everyone, it's Silvia from Tarot. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to have a look at my most used decks of 2024, both tarot and oracle decks and both mass market and indie. Let's see. Now, I feel like I have to make a distinction because when it comes to the decks that I'm using, I'm not talking about what I think are the top decks for 2024. There will be a video where I will talk about what I think are the top 10 mass market decks for 2024 that have been released this year. So this video is all about the decks that I'm actually using with a higher frequency than other decks. And there's something to say because obviously I have a YouTube channel and I have a membership that I run in this channel. And obviously we're doing a lot of stuff with tarot and oracle decks. And so it just so happens to be that those decks were used probably more than others this year. So I'm going to start with the Yokai Yochi because at the beginning of the year, with my members, we'd actually started with this deck as a deck study. And this is a this is an indie deck, and it's by Bybee. And I know that it is unfortunately out of print now, so I hope that if you really like it, you'll still be able to find it on, for example, a Facebook group. Please be careful because I've already seen a couple of copies or non-legit, so let's say counterfeit copies of this deck going around. But it's very easy to find them because honestly, they're like $10. So this deck is one of the decks that even when it was still in print and it was shipped out, I think it was originally a Kickstarter deck and then Bybee decided to do a reprint. But even then, it was still selling for probably I think $80. I could be wrong. Apologies for that. But in any case, it's certainly not a deck that sells for $10. So if you find yourself looking at a listing for $10 for this deck, unless there are very special circumstances, but more likely than not, it is going to be a fake. This deck is based on Japanese folklore and mythology, and the name yokai refers indeed to some mythological creatures that you can find in Japanese lore. It is an amazing deck. It is, as you can see, the muted color palette. I really enjoy it, but I just wanted to show you because I've shown this deck so many times, and as I said, it was one of the decks that we have studied together with my members. I just wanted to show you a version that is not indie. It is mass market deck. This is published very recently. I believe it was released at the end of November. It could be released also in the first week or second week of December. And I know that it is very expensive in some countries. So it is very unfortunate what Los Carabeos is doing. I don't know whether it is more expensive in other countries because they go through different distribution channels. So there is obviously what happens when you have to put some markup on the base price because everyone needs to make money. But in any case, this is the Yokai Tarot by Marga Biazzi and Paolo Bertazzo, as I said, released by Los Carabeos. So in case you don't have the possibility, you really like the theme, so Japanese folklore about the yokais, and you don't have the possibility to find the Yokai Yochi for whatever reason, there's a couple of decks. I actually filmed a video called the 3 Yokai decks. Let me help you decide, where I'm showing a comparison side by side between the Yokai Yochi, the Yokai Tarot, and the Tarocchi Yokai, which is an Italian or French-only version of another expression of the yokai culture in tarot. I'm showing you this one today, the one from Los Carabeos, because I know that this is in English as well. Or as you know, Los Carabeos, when they produce a deck nowadays, you're looking into the guidebook, and the guidebook will have the first part in English and the second part in another couple of languages. So obviously they do make it more, let's say, enjoyable by a wider or broader community when they do that, and I'm very grateful for that. However, the other deck that I was talking about, which is called the Tarocchi yokai is only available, as I said, in Italian and French. Hopefully one day will be picked up by a mass market company that will release it in English, because I honestly believe that is actually even the best one out of the three. Again, as I said, I did film that video comparing them side by side, and I do believe that there's a lot going on in the other deck. But because it is just in Italian, or at least my version is in Italian, I thought about showing this one. It's also because this one is more recent. These two, in any case, are very, very beautiful. It is often that I say that the Yokai Yochi is one of my most beautiful decks in my collection, regardless of the fact that it's out of print or indie, or whether it's still available or not. I am swayed by aesthetics, and we all are, and it's just kind of human, obviously. Of course, I also look at, the consistency throughout the decks, and also whether there's enough information in order to be able to enjoy the deck and also know a lot about what we're looking at, because obviously when we're talking about something so intrinsically linked to a cultural phenomenon, we want to know what we're looking at. We want to know what this legend or mythology is. Why is this particular yokai depicted this way, and why, or this one here, and why did the creator, did they choose this particular yokai to represent this particular card out of 78? So there's a lot to say about the production value. Is there enough information in the guidebook or not? When it comes to the Yokai Yochi, even though it is one of my most used decks in 2024, because that's the deck we've been studying with my members, I have to say, unfortunately, as you can see here, we're looking at a little white book, and yes, it is all in English, so all of it, you can enjoy all of it. It's not like it's got different languages at the bottom. But then again, as you can see, it doesn't necessarily show you a lot. So for example, this is the High Priestess, and the amount of information you have here is Roko Rokbi, which is the name of this particular yokai, which is the woman with the long neck, and sometimes the head will actually be separate from the neck. And this myth is about this woman that looks exactly like a human being during the day, but at night it transforms back into its appearance as a yokai with this really long neck. And the long neck can separate, let's say, it can take the head to a very long distance from the body, and it would just go around and spine onto other houses, into other houses. And some versions of this yokai actually depicts this one as a, let's say, a dangerous one, because it would feed off human flesh. So obviously you need to be very careful about this one if you see it. But as I wanted to show you, you don't have much. You say, was once a human, but was cursed for her misdeeds and transformed into a yokai. Her long neck stretches and wanders while she sleeps. So as you can see, yes, it does give you the name, yes, in kanjis and also in romaji, so you know how to pronounce it. And it gives you a little bit of a couple of lines talking about what this represents, but it doesn't necessarily give you the whole story. And trust me, for many of these yokais, you want the whole story, because there's so much to be said about them and to be learned about them, especially if you're into these kind of things. It is, my understanding that we want to know more about something that we love. In any case, that's what we've done. So with my members, we literally study this deck. And also I proposed, because obviously it was a difficult deck to source, I proposed a few other decks that were talking about the yokais in the Japanese lore, and it was lots of fun. Another deck that we've been studying with my members is the Sacred She Tarot by Madhava Padma. You'll probably know her. She will sound familiar because she's also the illustrator of the Osho Zen Tarot. This one, however, is a 100% production. So obviously, Madhava Padma has contributed or has completed the guidebook together with the images. We have been studying this deck. The way in which we've been structuring this deck study was to compare this deck to the Osho Zen. And then in the live that we had, we actually went through all of the cards together with the Osho Zen, and we kind of express our feelings towards the cards and whether we appreciate or we like or we feel that we resonate more with the Osho Zen or with the Sacred She. And I have to say that even though generally speaking, the Osho Zen is also always a deck that is in the heart of every tarot collector and tarot reader because of what it meant for us. In specific for me, it was the very first deck that changed the way in which I read tarot, some cards in specific. When it comes to, for example, some other cards, you know, there would be probably just as many people liking this deck as much as the Osho Zen, or perhaps liking it a little bit more for some cards, or perhaps liking it a little bit less. I mean, for example, we need to look at the keywords that are at the bottom of the card, which is really interesting because you will see that it changes your perspective. And that is something that I really loved for the Osho Zen. But for example, this Five of Pentacles, so the color green at the bottom points to the suit of the earth. So we can imagine that as the Five of Pentacles is called perseverance, which is not necessarily something that we always associate with the Five of Pentacles, which is more for me a loss. But it is very beautiful to see how it's been renamed and the way in which some of these cards have been explained by Madhava Padma in her the guidebook. So it is a really interesting deck. We had some very interesting conversation in that live, I have to say. So it was so much fun, but it was also really interesting. And I have to say, I love doing a live because it is easier to have this kind of discussion rather than, you know, just responding to comments on the videos. And so I'm very grateful to my members, you know, for being available and have this live for me. So it was really, really cool. So this deck, as I said, really cool graphics, very cool colors. I love the saturation of the colors and the contrast that creates. Some of them are absolutely fantastic, like this wisdom card, which is the world card, obviously. And I don't know if you can tell, but this is the eye of a whale, which is, you know, just fantastic because I really, really love whales. So this was another deck that I used the most this year, simply because we have been studying it and using it for my members. Another study that we've done together with my members this year was of the Awakening Tarot, an Elemental Approach, which is the latest release by Monica Badirsky. This is a Red Feather, yes, release. And it is a very alchemical deck, obviously, as the title says, Elemental Approaches obviously refer to alchemy. And let me tell you, this was an amazing adventure. Studying this really chunky monkey of a book has been really interesting. We just recently had the live discussion of this deck, and we have now moved on to the Wildwood Tarot as a deck study. This has been very interesting. Again, very, very cool to have a live together to discuss about going through the cards. I've provided my members with a lot of material related to alchemy and the relationship between alchemy and tarot, and in specific the elemental approach provided here by the Awakening Tarot. And it's been very interesting for me as well because I have been studying alchemy for a few years. I've always found it really fascinating. Specifically when we look at tarot, we expect it in the minors because of the elemental approach of not just this deck in specific, but whenever you look at the tarot deck, you may see that sometimes the minors have been renamed. So the suits of the earth, so the suit of Pentacles is renamed from the suit of the earth, and it's pointing to the element of earth. And goes the same for the cups and water, fire and wands, and air and swords. And so it's always interesting to have at least a basic elemental knowledge of alchemy, because I can guarantee you that it will give you a different perspective and an additional element of reading the cards, so that additional knowledge that will take you to a different level of reading. And so we were looking at these cards, and obviously it's always very nice to have a live because I encourage, expressing your opinions throughout, within all of my members. I always make it such a safe space that everyone feels safe to express their own opinion. And even then, even when they don't necessarily like a deck or they don't necessarily like a card in specific, we can say that because, well, first of all, I'm not the one who created the deck, but I always foster, safety of opinion, because I really do believe that that's the only way that we have to grow our knowledge on a deck. So as I said, we do a lot of things with my members, so you can check it out. I always make sure to put the link in the description box below if you want to join. And I'm doing a lot of work with my Starlight members as well, because we're doing a lot of work on a personal level for personal growth and processing some of our feelings, for example, through tarot, with the help of tarot. But I'm doing a lot of stuff with my Sunlight member, which is a medium tier. The Fairlight members, that is a tier that is considered a supporting level, but you still do have access to the live discussions of these decks. So moving on to the next deck, always referring to my membership and what I do in my members, because obviously I spend a lot of time producing content for them, and it's always related around tarot. And so what happened this year is that I have actually used a different oracle deck for each and every month. And so I really wanted to, so what I do, I basically publish a video every week in which I read the energies of that specific week for each and every group of zodiac signs. So the air signs, water signs, earth signs, and fire signs. And I switch between decks every month. And I believe that if I were to ask all of my members which oracle deck they preferred out of all of the ones that I've used, so 12 different ones, they would definitely pick this one. And it's also my pick as well. This is a Creative Consciousness Healing Oracle deck. It's got 44 cards. It is a mass market deck. It is an amazing deck. And let me tell you, it is very healing. I just absolutely love it. It feels healing. It looks very gentle, very kind, very supportive deck. The pastel colors, but also the kindness of the expression on the faces of the characters. The fact that you can choose to focus on the image represented, but also on the title, or even you can see here, for example, there's a really nice message at the bottom of each and every card. It is a fantastic deck. I've used it a lot together with the Tarot Landscapes for myself as well, and that made it one of my most used decks. I actually felt called by this deck. I felt like this deck was literally telling me that it's okay to not be okay, and it was providing me with as much support as I needed at the time. And so whether I was using it by itself, just pulling a card at the beginning of my day, or perhaps using it for my members, or using it in the Energies of the Week videos, it felt like it was really one of the decks that I really depended on in order for my well-being to just, be together with me, be there for me. So it's just an absolutely sweetheart of a deck, and I highly recommend it. Definitely one of those decks that is very affordable. I believe I only pay 34 Australian dollars for this deck, which is about, let me see, about 20, probably about 22 US dollars. So it's very affordable, at least that's the cost in Australia. It is by Andrews McMill Publishing. Very, very nice deck. And then moving on again with oracles that I've used a lot for my members. So I do a lot of readings for my members, and I've actually created a custom spread with this deck. This is an oracle deck that has been the reward of a Kickstarter campaign from a couple of months ago, maybe 6 months ago, sorry. It's called The Anatomy of Healing by Frank Kislar. And this deck was also on sale for Black Friday, I don't think it's still on sale. It might be at the time of filming, but I'm getting ahead with my videos, so it might not be at the time of posting this video. It might not be on sale anymore. In any case, it does ship out of Germany. So if you're in Europe, you might want to check it out because it might be available to you and the shipping costs might not be exaggerated. Let's put it this way. So this is an amazing deck. This reminds me a lot of the Energy Archaeology Oracle deck, but the Energy Archaeology, the premises of that deck is about the body and looking at all of the bones in the body because the traumas, multiple, that we go through our lives are actually stored in our bones. And so it gives you a perspective on how to deal with that trauma corresponding to what part of your bone, which bone in your body is actually storing that. And this one does more or less the same, but on a broader scale because it does not only look at bones, it looks at organs as well. And I really appreciate that because it gave me the possibility, as I said, to create a lot of custom spread for my members. And it works really, really well. I actually use it together with the Energy Archaeology. So 2 focus points, one looking at all of the organs in the body, another one looking at the bone in the body, and then using a tarot deck to understand where the trauma comes from. And then I use the Oracle Harmonie de la Nature, which is another deck I'll show you later, in order to receive some kind of an advice, but also as a wrap-up message, something really kind. Now, this one, as you can see, is very similar to the Antique Anatomy deck. And yes, indeed, it does pair up really well with any of those decks by Claire Goodchild. So if you have the Memento Mori, if you have the Oracle of Oddities, it will pair up really well. So if you have the Antique Anatomy in the indie edition, it will be even better. But what I've tried out lately is to pair it up with these 2 Oracle decks. It's actually, let's say, it's called the Inner Queen Oracle, 2nd edition by Leticia Casano from 2020. But these 2 are the same version of, 2 different versions, of the same deck. One is with muted color and one is with more, a broader color palette. However, I do use them together. And just to give you an example, these 2 are absolutely fantastic. This one is obviously focusing on the female body, Inner Queen Oracle indeed, but it feels very balanced in any case when I read these 2 together. Now I have to say, some of the cards obviously represent nudity, but it's a very stylized nudity. It is not an aggressive type of nudity, and it's not something that is manipulated or is used to achieve some kind of manipulation. So it is not seen like that. It is just literally looking at our bodies with an open mind and just accepting that the way we look is beautiful in any way. So it is a very gentle deck, but I do appreciate the combination. For example, we have the thymus gland here with seat of the soul and then emptiness, and it's referring to the uterus. So it is very interesting the way these 2 collaborate together and have this kind of a conversation. I've used it actually, ironically, I have used a lot the Anatomy of Healing for my members, but this combination I've just done that for myself because it really feels very powerful, but also very intimate. I don't know if I can, convey this message, but you will see that if you look at these 2 cards together, it feels very, very intimate. And so obviously it's something that I really wanted to try on myself first, rather than proposing that to my members. But I do really love these 2 together. Now, when it comes to the Inner Queen Oracle, I have absolutely no idea whether this deck is still on print or not. I honestly haven't seen it around that much, but it reads really nice. It's a very beautiful deck. And as you see, we got again the emptiness card. But as I explained before, so it comes with two different versions, one with limited color palette and another one with more colors like this one. So these two together are absolutely fantastic. But as I said, I did create a custom spread for the Anatomy of Healing that is revealing to be extremely powerful for personal readings from my members. And when it comes to those readings, I actually filmed them in private mode. So it is part of my membership perks of the Sunlight and Starlight members. But when it comes to very intimate, very powerful and personal readings, I actually perform them in private mode. So it feels like an actual reading, not like a public one. And then moving on, because I did a lot of reading for myself as well, and I absolutely loved using, and also for my members, so I absolutely loved using the Tarot Landscape by Francesca Matteoni and illustrated by Yoshimari. This is a Vivida released, or Vivida. It is a deck from 2023 or towards the end of 2023. But let me tell you, the bulk of the usage or my usage of this deck has happened in 2024. This is one of the decks that I absolutely adore using. And I am very happy to say that it pairs up like a charm with the Oracle Harmony of Nature. And I'm just going to show you quickly, because it is one of those combinations that is really like a match made in heaven. This is an Oracle deck that I absolutely adore. It is a recent release. It's a French deck. But I have to say, it's very easy to use. It's not, you don't necessarily need to speak French. However, I have to say, obviously, if you're looking into going deeper into the readings by looking into the guidebook, you can probably still use Google Translate, but it is a bit, more, it's probably more difficult. However, as I said, the keywords are very easy to recognize. Most of the times, these words come from Latin anyway, so they have the same root as the English word, diversity, diversité, for example. And I absolutely love these two together. And by the way, so when I was presenting this deck, I was addressing Marine from the Waves of Your Soul, and I was saying, Marine, you will love this deck. And she showed a video recently. I don't remember the title. Maybe it was the recent acquisitions. And she had the opportunity to find this deck, and she bought it from a local bookstore. And she gave me a shout out. She's really sweet. And she also said that she loves pairing it up with the Tarot Landscape, which is amazing, because I love seeing that other tarot practitioners, lovers, readers and collectors are having the same experience as I have when using decks together. It is something that really makes me happy, I have to say. And as you can see, this is not a difficult oracle to use. It really flows. This is échange with change, and transparence. So as you can see, it's not difficult to deduce the keywords at the bottom of the cards, even if you don't speak French, apart from maybe one or two of them. Deuil means grief, for example. Légèreté means lightness. But once you see them, then it's easier to remember them. And so I reckon if you want a recommendation for a kind, beautiful deck, Oracle deck, this is absolutely it for me this year. It is absolutely fantastic. I really love it. And when you combine it with the Tarot Landscape, it's just absolutely made in heaven. Another combination of decks that I use very often this year, not just for my members reading, but also for my own personal readings, is these two. And this has been, 2024 has been the year of the Savvy Soul Tarot for me. Yes, also 2023 and the part of 2022 when I already had the deck. So I don't know whether I used it more in 2023 or in 2024, but for sure, this is still one of the decks that I reach out for the most, whether it's because I'm doing a divination reading or because I just want to feel like I'm hanging out with a friend, because this is literally the feeling for me when I use this deck. And I've been pairing it almost always with the Outlaw Oracle by Hilary Banks Self. This is by Julie Whitelish, by the way. These are both indie decks. Unfortunately, this is out of print, but there's so many people, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, reaching out to Julie and begging her for a reprint that, you never know. I don't have any news, but I do know that there's a lot of interest for the Savvy Soul Tarot. The Outlaw Oracle, is still in print, is still available. The author is in the US, so obviously if you are in the US as well, the shipping fees are not outrageous, so you can actually check it out for yourself. These two pair up like a charm. Let me just zoom in even further. Maybe we just push them up a little bit. They pair up like a charm. They're absolutely amazing, these two decks. They're very similar when it comes to the layout, because as you can see, they both have these kind of a cream color borders, but not too obnoxious, not too thick. And then they're both based on photography, even though obviously I have to say there is a little bit of a different kind of rendering when it comes to photography for the Savvy Soul Tarot, and also obviously when it comes to the Outlaw Oracle, and it's not the same technique, but you don't really mind it when you use these two together. It feels like they're very cohesive, and reading them feels like a very nice flow. And I really love that, for example, you can spot the alchemical element. Although let me tell you, through the camera, you might not see it because it's actually kind of a faint color. So I don't know, I'm just gonna try and show you. Let's see if you want to focus your camera. So this one here, you can see it here. This is the alchemical element for Earth. And number 22. Number 22 will obviously give you the possibility to go back to the guidebook and find it. The alchemical element of Earth gives you the idea, at least an idea on how to approach this card, or the reading or the interpretation of this card. And as I said, I just love putting these two together on my desk and just flip the cards and look at how beautiful they are together and the messages that come through. And I love to focus on the message given by the Oracle deck, but then I always refer back to the card that I'm pairing it with, coming from the Savvy Soul Tarot. So that's well with the Two of Swords. There's just, everything is bare in front of us. There's only two choices, but unfortunately, they're both really hard. They're both really tough. And so darkness, blackout, oblivion with the Two of Swords. I love focusing on the title of the Oracle cards, but also expanding a little bit onto the keywords that are at the bottom. And I believe, if I'm correct, there's always at least two. So it's always very interesting because you do have a couple of different possibilities, like Neon Sign has got the keywords are homecoming and opportunities. And so obviously opportunities matches really well with the Two of Pentacles, because it really gives you this idea of juggling between two opportunities you cannot, at this stage of your journey, you can't necessarily focus on, or at least yet, and you don't necessarily know which one to pick. But this is kind of this juggling is kind of whimsical. It's not the being stuck between a rock and a hard place of the Two of Swords, where you're kind of blindfolded to the choices that you got. So it is, look, it's an amazing combo. I'm doing also the Wheel of the Year reading now for my new members, and also my other members get a massive discount on it for 2025. And I have to say, I, not always, but many times I've been reaching out for the Savvy Soul, because when it comes to Wheel of the Year readings, the fact that you have a photo, the fact that you have a very expressive image, it really is very powerful. And pairing it up with the Outlaw Oracle is even more so. So I find it a very enlightening, but also enriching and also fun experience, because why not? I mean, we also need to have fun. I mean, tarot is not just serious, come on. So these two, absolutely adore these two. They'll probably make it as my most used decks of any year, unless something happens in which I acquire a deck that I love even more than the Savvy Soul Tarot, which at this moment I really don't think is possible. And in that case, I would probably use it more. But honestly, this is just amazing. And then when it comes to my own personal practice, because I always talk about what I use for my members, but when I talk about my own personal practice, this year I was really into reading stories about historical characters, like really getting into tarot decks in specific that really shows you the possibility to know more about someone that is interesting or that has done something peculiar, something remarkable. And so I have two decks to show you. This one, the first one, is the Magician, Martyrs, and Madman Tarot by Travis McHenry. This is the mass market release by Rockpool. And I love this guidebook. So it is, to be honest with you, it's not like it's got pages and pages for each and every character. As a matter of fact, it's just one page each. But at least it gives you an introduction to the character. And then when you understand whether you resonate with the character or not, or whether you want to gather more knowledge about what they actually did in their life, you can do your own Googling and your own research if you want. But I find this like, let's say, if we're looking into a stepping stone into narrow it down, let's say, on what I want to know about a character, this one gives you that. And then if you still want to know more, you can do your own research. So Nostradamus is for the Six of Wands, for example, and you try and understand why it's related to the Six of Wands. So at first, it actually tells you a bit of a story about the character. And then you see this part at the bottom here, which is actually framed. It shows you why you should look at Nostradamus for the Six of Wands. So the Six of Wands indicates a message or a messenger bringing good news. So this is not necessarily the way in which I would read the Six of Wands. For me, the Six of Wands is the victory, not necessarily the message. But when I look at it that way, I definitely understand why picking Nostradamus, because he was an astrologer and he did a book of prediction or divination for the future. So obviously that's where you see, that's where you find a connection between the card and the character. And I really appreciate that, because it is something that is not always straightforward with these decks. And I'm not talking about this one in specific, but whenever you have a deck that is using let's say, a very well-known character throughout history, you will probably struggle unless you know this character really well. Or at least I would struggle, okay? Let's put it personally. I would struggle. Sometimes I don't really understand what the link is, and then I look in the guidebook, and it's definitely helping. So I really like that I don't necessarily need to go back to the guidebook to understand or to know who we're talking about, because as you can see here, there's actually the name of the character at the bottom of the card. And so once you start using this deck as much as I did this year for myself, and I have to say, yes, I did a lot of shadow work with this deck. I didn't necessarily want to advertise it as that, because in principle, I don't believe that this is necessarily a shadow work deck, but that's the way in which I ended up using it. It doesn't necessarily mean that other people will use it the same way. But I love the fact that once I started using it a lot more and going to the guidebook and reading the association between the characters and the card, I immediately recognize it, Emperor and Nero, and so on and so forth. And so it made it a lot easier for me to use it. And when it becomes easier, I personally feel like reaching out more for the deck, because it is like, a confirmation of what I remember using it for. So it is a great feeling. Jack the Ripper for the death card, you really have to go and dig deeper into the meaning of the cards. And I love that this deck has given me the possibility to learn more about 78 characters out of history that were referred to magicians, Harry Houdini, martyrs, and madmen. So absolutely stoked about having this deck. Yes, it is the mass market deck. I don't have the indie deck. I know that there is a There was originally a Kickstarter campaign for this deck. I didn't back it, and to be honest, I'm quite happy to have the mass market edition. It feels fantastic. It's a really good, it comes with a really good book, as you've seen, so, and it's also gilded, so what more can I ask for? Very affordable price. Obviously, Rockpool is Australian, so I'm imagining it is more expensive overseas, so I'm kind of happy that for once we have one publisher in Australia. We only have two, actually. It's Rockpool and Blue Angel. For what I know, there might be more minor ones, but I'm not entirely sure. But this is one of the decks that I used the most this year because I really felt like I wanted to be in the company of these people, even though in many, many cases I was like I was shocked by reading what they did in their lives, especially what they call the madmen. But the same principle applies to another deck that it was one of my most used decks of this year, and it's the Hour Tarot, which is even bigger, so I have to zoom out, which is ironic because the box is humongous. As you can see, it's really huge, and I love the fact that it's got a fantastic book. So I don't even call it guidebook. This is a book. I mean, look at how chunky this is. And the reason why I love that it's like this is because, as you can imagine, it is this large because it gives you a lot of information about all of these characters. Now, this is the Hour Tarot, so it focuses on characters, female characters throughout history. It does a fantastic job in telling you everything about these characters. You will literally know or get to know Zora Neale Hurston like it was a friend of yours. The date of birth, the country, what she's done. And then it does make the link. It shows you the link or the connection between the card, the Seven of Pentacles, and Zora Neale, and the way in which we read the Seven of Pentacles. So it gives you the key aspects upright and reversed. And then there's a bit of a bio, but if you were a bit disappointed by the short paragraph you've seen in the Magician, Martyrs, and Madman Tarot, you'll be very happy to know that in this case we're talking about pages, as you can see. Pages for each and every character. It doesn't matter whether it's a minor or a major. When it comes to the majors, I believe we have even more. So we see Frida for the Death card. And there's about, it's a bit more. There's a page and a half more than for the minors. But let me assure you, even for the minors, it is very comprehensive. It's very, at a very extensive, but also deep level of knowledge and description of the lives of these characters and the reason why they have been associated with this specific card. I have learned so much about many of these characters, and that's one of the reasons why I was actually studying this deck for myself. So this was not a deck that we've been studying with my members. It's a deck that I literally just kept, and I have to be honest, more the guidebook than the cards, because let me just show you. The cards are tiny, so this is very upsetting. Not rather upsetting. I'm just really disappointed because this is a standard tarot size. And when it comes to this one, you probably imagine, I've talked about this because I was going through all of my collection, and I was saying, you would think that it's not too bad, but when you open it, you'll see that it's got really huge white borders, and it does take away room from the image itself. So it's really a pity. And I have to actually zoom in order to show you the cards because, as I said, they are rather tiny. But it's a beautiful deck. It's a collage deck. It's really, really gorgeous. I also appreciate the fact that just as the Magician, Martyrs, and Madman Tarot was giving you the name of the character at the bottom, this one does the same. So as I said, once you get through the book and you gain some kind of confidence in associating the characters, their lives, their bios with the cards they associated to, then it will come in a very fluid way. It will be really easy to read and to use. And again, if you're looking for a tarot deck to study, or rather a really excellent book to study, this one is absolutely fantastic. I mean, I'm just showing that to you, but I just wanted to repeat myself because I really, really strongly believe that it's one of the best guidebooks I've had for a number of years in my collection. That obviously changes. In any case, there will be a video in which I will give you my top 10 mass market guidebook for a tarot or an oracle deck. So not necessarily, that will be a choice, not necessarily based on the aesthetics of the decks, but rather on the amount of information contained in the guidebook. Because I did a video like that maybe a year and a half ago, and I feel like I've acquired some decks in my collection ever since then that really deserve to be mentioned, and I really want to do another video. But in any case, so this was it for today. These are by far the tarot and oracle decks that I've used the most for 2024. And again, as I specified at the beginning of this video, this is not my pick for the top 10 mass market decks of 2024. That video will come, but I'm still waiting, to decide on a couple of decks. So we'll see. For the time being, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day.